So imagine, you close your eyes and in the very next moment, the place you are in doesn't feel real anymore. And if I tell you that this is not just imagination, but a real physiological glitch of your brain. Today's story is about a person whose brain could not distinguish between truth and lies. There was a neuroscience lab under an old hospital in a city. In that lab, a scientist worked, Dr. Arman. He used to say, the human brain does not create reality. It only interprets signals. And he was conducting an experiment. Sensory deprivation plus memory rewriting test. The experiment seemed simple, but it was extremely dangerous from the inside. A volunteer was placed inside a sealed room where there was no light, no sound, no smell, and no sense of touch. Only a helmet that sent artificial signals to the brain. On the first day, everything was normal, but after 6 hours, the volunteer said, "I am not alone in this room. Someone is standing with me." But the CCTV showed an empty room. Dr. Arman smiled and said, "This is not hallucination. This is the brain's survival mode." Science says that when human senses are cut off, the brain creates a dopamine, cortisol, and serotonin imbalance, and then the brain starts building a fake reality on its own so that it does not feel bored or dead. Then in the next phase, a new signal frequency was introduced in the helmet, which activated old memories of the person. The volunteer started shaking and said, "I am hearing my mother's voice, but she died 10 years ago." Dr. Arman became a little serious, but he did not stop the experiment because he wanted proof that memory is not just storage, but a replayable illusion. On the 7th day, the volunteer shouted, "I am not locked in this room. I am locked inside my own mind." The system showed unexpected readings. Heart rate dropped by 40%. Brain waves entered delta state, and the body went into a sleep paralysis. Like conditioned, Dr. Arman pressed the emergency stop button, but the system was not responding. On the monitor, only one line appeared. Subject no longer responding to external reality. When the room was opened, the volunteer was sitting silently, eyes open, and he said, "Have I come out or am I still inside?" But the scariest part was, he could not recognize his own voice anymore. Dr. Arman wrote in his report, "The brain does not distinguish between real and imagined stimuli when sensory input is removed for too long." But the next day, in the lab recording, an extra voice was found that no one had recorded. It said, "Dr. Arman, you are also part of the experiment." And this was the real question. If the brain is creating reality, then what is real? Science says the brain protects you, but sometimes it takes you away from the truth. Lesson: when the senses go silent, the brain creates its own world, and sometimes that world feels even more real than reality.